Good morning and welcome to our third day of the NAC Retreat Week. I'm Dan Borschke, NAC's Executive Vice President. It is my honor and privilege to facilitate the next hour or so of programming. First of all, let's give many thanks to our sponsors who, without their generosity, we'd be unable to conduct this week's long educational experience. Many thanks to Coca-Cola, as we advance the slides, to Coca-Cola, and then also to our friends at Gold Medal, Hershey Chocolate, Mars Wrigley, Ricos Products, Load King, Pepsi, Vistar. Next slide, please. ConAgra, PCI, Package Concepts Incorporated, Promotion in Motion. Next slide, please. Great Western Products, Colonel Seasons, Manel Popcorn, Odell's, Preferred Popcorn, and Scribner and Associates. Like many of our members, NAC is certainly experiencing some financial stress during these challenging times. We thank all our members for their support and engagement as we all journey through this once-in-a-century experience. If you'd like to assist the NAC education efforts, please visit the donate button at the NAC Retreat Week website page. Before we introduce today's session, hope you can join us this afternoon. We're going to have a great experience with a wine tasting at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, for a virtual wine tasting from Copper Cane Winery and their CEO, Joseph Wagner. It'll be a first for us and we hope you will enjoy. Remember, this is virtual wine tasting. Some of us have got bottles that we did get an order from Copper Cane, so we look forward to imbibing this afternoon. Again, remember the session this afternoon is a unique Zoom connection or link. If you don't have it already, please visit the website and you can access it there. Don't forget, all of these sessions are accessible, other than what we just said about Copper Cane, through the same link that you're using this morning. If you have any questions for the panelists today, please use the Q&A function on the lower half of your picture. We'll be proud to answer any of those questions. We are thrilled to have about 360 registrants for this entire week. And finally, all these week's sessions are being audio taped and videotaped. So it'll be available on naconline.org later this week. And then, of course, I know all of you are joining us because of our door prizes. The generosity of our members have been enormous, and we thank you for all of those prizes. Chris will be announcing the winners at the end of today's session. So on to today's session. We are thrilled, and we know there'll be of great interest to many of our NAC membership. The title is Family Business, a Blessing or a Burden. And our friend Denise Zutter, President-elect, will be facilitating the panel. And just quickly, our panel will include Adam Noyes from Proof of the Pudding, Doreen Sayegh from Cranford Theater in Cranford, New Jersey, Stephanie Stuckey from the Stuckey Corporation, and Tony Liberto from Ricos Products. So without further ado, Denise, it's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. We have a great panel of speakers for you today. But first, on this Veterans Day, I want to say thank you to anybody on the call who has served in our military. We appreciate what you've done, and thank you. We are thinking of you today. So our first speaker today is Adam Noyes. He is the president of Proof of the Pudding. It's an Atlanta-based catering and food service management company. And so, Adam, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on the panel with Doreen, Stephanie, and Tony. So glad to be joining you all today. I'm going to give you a brief overview and talk a little bit about how the family dynamics impact our company as Proof of the Pudding. I would definitely say our family and the whole organization has been a blessing to start. But this year, I would say it's been a burden in 2020. It's certainly been a challenging year for so many of us in the hospitality industry. Next slide, please. Next couple of slides. Give you a quick company overview. Keep going, please. Our business is at the core is been based on relationships since the very beginning. We started off as a small mom and pop off-premise catering company 42 years ago. So we're 42 years young. And as Atlanta grew, we got into the exclusive venue management side of the business. But we've always kind of branded ourselves as a premier brand in Atlanta. And yes, we're a little bit typically more expensive than some of the competition out there, but that's kind of where we wanted to brand ourselves. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Chris.
Sure, there you go.
Some of our core values, you skipped over that, but some of our core values are honesty, integrity, creativity and innovation, fun, teamwork, exceptional quality. You can skip forward 2 slides. Keep going. Back to company and ownership, and this is where we're going to dive into some of the family dynamics. So my father was not the founder of Proof of the Pudding. There was a lady named Kay Goldstein in 1979 that created, was a small coffee shop off of 5th and Piedmont here in Atlanta. And my father was running MGR Food Services, which many of you are probably familiar with, that had the World Congress Center and the Georgia Dome for many, many years before they sold that business to Levy. So in the early 80s, my father invested and became the principal investor in Proof of the Pudding. The business had kind of outgrown Kay, and he hired a gentleman named Guy Thompson to run Proof of the Pudding. And Guy ran it for all the years until about 10 years ago. And I grew up in the company and did every job from loading trucks to dishwasher to server, you name it. I did it all. But I went to the hospitality school at Western Carolina University, and I fell in love with the hotel side of the business. And this was just a little bit strategic for our family. Rather than just go into the family business out of school with hospitality, we all thought it was a good idea for me to go and do something different. So I went to work for Ritz-Carlton and Hyatt Hotels for 14 years and had a great career with Hyatt. Worked my way up from property management to the corporate office and had regional responsibility. And it was a phenomenal experience. But one day my father, I got to move because my lights time out in my office. Father called and asked if I wanted to go to breakfast. And I had no intention of joining the family company at all at the time because I was having a good time with Hyatt. And his business partner, Guy, who was running the company, wanted to play more golf and retire and enjoy his time more, and asked if I would want to join the family company. And in order to do so, I would need to buy Guy Thompson and his shares out of the organization. So I went home and talked with my wife, and it was a lot to think about because I was having a good career with Hyatt. But I loved Proof, and I thought had a lot of options to grow Proof. That was kind of my track record with Hyatt. And so we went to the bank, we took a big loan out, we leveraged our house, and I bought out all of Guy's shares, who were my dad's business partner. So I bought into the family company, which is very different sometimes from how it typically derives. So I ended up buying Guy out, and that was about 10 years ago. And we were about a $13 million company at the time. And today in COVID, prior to COVID, we were about a $52 million a year company. This year's certainly been a little different, but we'll get back to that. But I don't take credit for that growth. What I did was I surrounded myself with a lot of people, a lot smarter than I am. And we went on a pretty good run for the last 9 years. So I'll walk through some of those individuals and tell you a little bit more about our portfolio and then some more about the family dynamics. Next slide, please, Chris. And let me know when I'm getting about 2 minutes close to time, Denise, if you don't mind.
I will.
Okay, Ben Whitty is our Chief Operating Officer. my number two. This guy is a phenomenal operator and has been my right-hand man as we've scaled the company in the last 9 years. Von Nielsen's our founding executive chef. Nick's our corporate executive chef. These team members have been instrumental in our growth. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll go through locations and we'll kind of go quickly. So we do the Infinite Energy Theater, Chastain Park, 13,000 seat arena called the Infinite Energy Arena, the Georgia International Horse Park. Just keep clicking through as I rail them off, Chris, please. The ballroom at the Carlos Center is a exclusive account. The Carter Presidential Libraries was our first account. So we've been there and continue to feed the Carters. Beaufort Community Center, the Georgia International Convention Center, which has the largest ballroom in the state of Georgia. I think some of our accounts got cut off, but that's okay. In addition to that, we've gotten into PGA Tour golf. We now do 8 PGA Tour golf events, including the Players, the Dell Match Play, the Northern Trust, the Tour Championship, the Dominion. On the concession side, we've also gotten into outdoor boat shows. So we do the world's largest yacht shows. So Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, we actually just did that last week in Fort Lauderdale. It was 60% of what it typically would have been, but it was nice to get back to business out down there. But we do the other four Informa trade shows down there in Florida. We also have a collegiate division. We do all the premium catering for Georgia Tech, University of Georgia Bulldogs, Auburn, Alabama, JSU, Mississippi State, and Duke University as well. And we do some one-off things like a private island called Fripp Island in South Carolina. We have some airport kiosk concepts and myriad of other food and beverage operations. So family business. My 2 sisters have a little bit of equity in the company, but they're not involved in the company at all. My father is the chairman, and he's chosen a role as more of an advisor than a day-to-day hands-on since I joined the company, and that was strategic. He wanted me to be able to make mistakes or make moves without having to gain his approval with every little thing along the way. And that really set up 2 things for success. It allowed the company to move fast and move quickly and do what we needed to do to grow. But it also ensured that our relationship was not all about business. You know, I have a wonderful relationship with my father, and every time we get together, we do talk a little bit of business, but it did not, me joining the company and taking over the company certainly did not change our relationship. And because we've divided it that way, I think it's been good for us. Where he's still involved is mainly in large decisions in terms of capital moves, investments, accounts we choose to do business with. You know, he's still got some really strong relationships with some of the initial long-term customers, 20+ years. And he enjoys those relationships and loves to continue those. And he certainly plays that role. But in terms of family dynamics, I would say we're very fortunate to have a great working relationship. I invested into the company. I've since acquired his shares and some other shares from other business partners as the company has grown. And that's kind of really how we have set it up as an organization and ownership from a family dynamics perspective. So I think that's about all I've got. How are we doing on time, Denise?
You're just about at the end, so that's good. And we'll get your take on some of the burdens and benefits a little later in the Q&A section.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Our second panelist is Doreen Sayegh. who is the owner of the Cranford Theater. They have survived the pandemic. I think Doreen's been on 2 calls this year and talked about their drive-in theaters. Doreen also has significant exhibition experience with Screen Vision, Carmike Cinemas, and Digiplex Destinations. So Doreen, it's all yours.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and to share our story. So my story is a little bit similar to Adam's story, and my father owned a chain of theaters starting in the 80s into the 90s, super successful on his own private business. And I grew up in the business as a child, running around a theater up and down, auditorium aisles. And then by the time I was 8, I was behind a candy stand wanting to sell candy and popcorn. I could barely see over the counter. But I knew it was something I loved, and there was a lot of excitement in this industry and in this business and in movies. And mainly because of the effect it had on customers, on our guests, the smiles on their faces, the astonishment on these children's faces when, the screen would light up. So I knew as I got older, I stayed in the business through high school, through college. And then around 2010, we decided to sell the operation, but held on to our buildings. So we had tenants that came in. And over the years, there's a lot of consolidation in our industry, and there were different operators. Through that time, I stayed on with other exhibitors, and I learned the corporate side of the business. So I feel that I had a great combination between private ownership and corporate ownership. I learned a lot along the way. My father certainly taught me a great deal. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and over the years, they too were part of the business and were, just like I was, theater ushers and concession attendants and box office cashiers, assistant managers, then managers. And then over time, they chose different paths, and I knew in my heart that this is where I wanted to be, and this is a business that I love. So in 2010, we did sell what was left of our operations, which at the time was 2 theaters, but owned the property on 4 movie theaters in New Jersey. So, over the years, the tenants changed, different operators, and then the last tenant that was there abandoned 2 of our theater locations last year. And unfortunately, they were not left in good condition, and they're both hometown theaters, which were pretty successful over the years, had a diehard following. But things changed, the industry changed, there were different disruptions along the way. So the theater in Cranford, I decided to renovate, A, because it was far enough away from any big competition. B, it was an established art house in New Jersey, which we had started back in the 90s by playing art product there. And over the years, art product just got stronger and stronger. So, and we didn't have much of that competition in the area. And the community felt very strongly about keeping their hometown theater, and there was a lot of support. I mean, from the minute the door closed, our phones started ringing because the call came to the landlord from the mayor, and there was a lot of concern, and they didn't want to lose their theater. And just based on the support and the excitement we saw from the community, it made sense to renovate and reopen at a time where small theaters are closing. And I feel great, and so does my father and my family, that we made a great decision reopening this theater and putting the money in to renovate. So it did go through an extensive renovation last year. Actually, it was exactly a year ago that we reopened on November 8th, and 4 months later, the pandemic hit, and we were doing very, very well. And then caught off guard and had no choice but to close our doors. So we actually shut down a day or 2 before the governor mandated it, because we saw it in the numbers and we saw the fear. So I think, Chris, if we could just switch, we need to go back to the first, there should be a first slide. Yeah, right there. So that's my dad and I in the middle during construction. We were just starting to rip everything apart. And, picture here after we renovated is what the lobby looks like. It's a small art house theater, 5 screens, but does very, very well. And, you know, up on the top right, we had done a red carpet premiere right at the beginning when we reopened. That's our marquee after it was fixed up and cleaned up. And then on the left, you know, we started doing some promotions that were really taking off, where we were tying into the community and with other businesses. And the other businesses in town, it's got a very strong and vibrant downtown. Cranford was rated the best downtown in New Jersey for the 2nd year in a row. The businesses heavily depend on their in-town theater, because not only do people come to the movies, they come from different directions. It's not just based on your residents, it's based on people visiting from other towns, because you have movies that they want to see that they cannot easily find somewhere else. So when the theater was closed, the restaurants felt it too. So when we reopened, it was, you know, the amount of gratitude and excitement from restaurants and ice cream shops and coffee shops was overwhelming. So we started to tie into the local businesses. Here, there's an advertisement on the screen. We did a Galentine's Day dinner right before Valentine's Day, and tied in with a local restaurant. And they put together a dinner package. It's a reasonable price. And then guests came over after and saw the movie. We did something called a Frozen stroll when Frozen came out last year, and we tied in with the local restaurants and the stores, where anybody who signed on was included on this map, this Frozen stroll map, and they each would supply their own stores with little knickknacks, whether it be stickers or Frozen toys. And when you came to the theater and bought your movie ticket to see Frozen, you got a Frozen bag and a map, and you would follow it through town and visit all the stores, and the children would collect, you know, all the giveaways. And the restaurants had a Frozen package where it was like a buy one, get one meal for your children. So not only did it give them an extra, you know, an addition to the experience of seeing the movie, it also helped our local businesses, you know, because now they're gaining new customers or people who may not have heard of their stores. So we have a great working relationship with the township and with those around us. So now here comes the pandemic, and, you know, nobody knew what to expect. Everybody thought it was going to be 2 weeks and we were going to be back open again. And as time started to go on, it didn't look like that was going to happen. So in April, we started selling popcorn and concessions to go. We kicked into action, you know, right away, and, you know, bagged everything at the theater, put it up on our website, and sales were much more than I expected they would be. There was a great deal of support, and people were excited about it. They were having family movie nights. So we sold concessions, we sold nachos and candy, we sold a lot of popcorn. We sold t-shirts. We had partnered with a local business where they created the shirts and delivered them for us, and we shared so it was great. All I had to do was advertise on my social media, and they really did a lot of the work, and that generated a good deal of revenue. And then we sold gift certificates also, because our systems were down and our credit card machines were down. We luckily had gift certificates in stock, because we couldn't do gift cards at the time. And we did sell, and people were, you know, very kind and purchased gift certificates so that they could be used when the theater reopened. We also did gift packs, which originally had started as me donating them to a local organization in town that they could raffle off. And then it became a thing. And we started selling them, where it would have candy, it had popcorn bags in it, and it had 2 bottles of water and 2 movie tickets, in hopes that when we opened, we would have all these tickets in circulation that people would want to use and get them back into theaters. So that did really well for a couple months. And in the process, I had heard that drive-in movie theaters were starting to make a comeback. And I just felt overly compelled, and I could feel it in my heart that this is what I wanted to do and what I had to do. At the beginning of the pandemic, I just found myself in this helpless position of, how do I help? What do I do to help the situation and to give back and contribute? What could I do that would make people happy? So that was it. That was what I wanted to do. My family was on board. You know, it was tough because, you know, my dad was overseas. He had gotten stuck overseas when they closed the borders. He was away on business, so he had been gone. So it was a lot of communication over the phone, and we were fully on board and committed to making the drive-in work. So it took a good 2 months to plan, because we had never been in the drive-in business, and I honestly had never been to a drive-in before, but was always intrigued by the model. So we put together a plan, presented it to the township, completely on board. Here we are just starting to build our screen, paint it, get it up and running. The picture on that's actually me on the left sitting in front of the shipping container, which is where we put our projection booth. And that was 2 days before we opened. The picture on the top right is opening night. And amazingly, the first car to pull in the lot that night was that orange Beetle you see in the front. And I had seen some old pictures, some old black and whites of Beetles at the drive-in. So coincidentally, that was our first customer. And this has been, you know, an amazing experience. There's a picture on the bottom left of a family with a blow-up bed in the pickup truck. We've heard of people renting pickup trucks just so they could experience sitting in the bed of the truck at the drive-in. So the drive-in was definitely a big risk because we had just finished renovating the movie theater. And poured a lot of money into that. And, you know, it was a risk, but it was one we were ready to take. And I wasn't sure which way it was going to go, honestly, but thankfully it's been super successful. We've been sold out almost every night since we started in June. And we'll be going until the end of November. So far, the weather has been surprisingly amazing lately here in New Jersey, with temperatures in the high 70s the last week. So it does dip down at night a little bit. So I do believe that Thanksgiving will probably be our last weekend. But it has been an overwhelming experience for myself and for my family. Just like Adam said, you know, you have to surround yourself with the right team. And I have certainly surrounded myself with a wonderful team. From everyone that was involved in this project, starting from the township to my employees, our security team, our contractors, they've just been amazing. They all poured their heart and soul into this project, and they were by our side beginning to end. So it's been amazing. And I think the most amazing part are the memorable experiences that people are gaining from this. Luckily, we were able to put in a small concession area and sell a lot of what we do sell at the theater right there, you know, out of a container. But we made it work. And you know, part of the experience for the children is having their concessions delivered to the car, because we don't allow anyone out of the car or to come up to our concession area. That's been part of the experience for kids. So it was great, you know, that to see the smiles on the faces. I've literally had customers tear up just telling us how this has been wonderful for them and their family, because they're too afraid to go anywhere else or do other things. And this was, you know, going back to July, where people were still very nervous and things were just starting to become a little more lenient here. So it's been great for families, for the children. It's been great for me and my employees to be able to do this. And, you know, not only did I want to do the driveway, we wanted to add some more to the experience, right? So we had nights where we did costumed employees for, like, we did dinosaurs for Jurassic Park. We did a tie-in with the Cake Boss to raise money for the Children's Specialized Hospital. So we had Minions on site. We did Ghostbusters, so we had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So we did a tie-in, you know, different ways to help create more of an experience. One of our favorite promotions is the Willy Wonka promotion. That was actually huge. Never in a million years did we expect that it would be as big as it was. But what we did was sell the tickets to all the businesses in town. So all the tickets were bought by restaurants and bars and clothing shops. And it was up to them on how they wanted to give away those tickets to their customers, whether it be wrapped around an ice cream cone or with inside a pizza box. And they did. So everyone that came to Willy Wonka that night in August had a winning golden ticket that they had to present at check-in. And what we did too was gather all the pictures of all the winners and create a montage that played on screen before the movie started. And then that night, one lucky winner, we handed out Wonka bars, one per car. And inside one of the Wonka bars was a winning golden ticket that won you a 1-year supply of candy, courtesy of our friends at the Ferrara Company. We also did another Willy Wonka promotion where we tied in with our very good friends at Promotion in Motion, where someone found a winning golden ticket inside a box of Welch's fruit snacks, and that won them a factory tour, which is located here in New Jersey. So it really overall was just, it was just great that we could do this for the community and that people were happy, they felt safe, and they're going to take away a memory. You know, a lot of these children have never been to a drive-in, so parents were happy that they had something that they could do with their children that they did themselves with their parents. So overall, I cannot emphasize how wonderful the summer and the fall has been.
Doreen, thank you. I think this emphasizes how family businesses can sometimes move very quickly on a new project, and to stand this up in 2 months is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Our next speaker is Stephanie. There you are. Okay. Stephanie Stuckey is the CEO at Stuckey Corporations. Stuckey is the classic brand of roadside oasis. Since 1937, they've been around. I looked at Stephanie's LinkedIn. She's also, believe it or not, taught a course at the University of Georgia Law School. She's worked for the city of Atlanta as the Chief Resilience Officer and the Director of the Office of Sustainability. So some interesting experiences. Stephanie, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Denise, and a pleasure to be here. I want to echo your sentiments about today being Veterans Day. I've got a brief story I'll tell in the presentation about how Stuckey's has supported our military, but I'm honored to be here. I never thought a year ago that I would be in the position that I am in now, much less giving a presentation on Stuckey's. My career path is very different from the other speakers. I didn't grow up in the business. I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background, and then I'm going to plunge into most of my discussions going to be why I think family businesses are really the backbone of our economy and how important they are. And some of our viewers, hopefully, I'm sure many of them are family businesses themselves, but just encourage everyone to, you know, as you're looking at who you want to do business with, who you want to partner with, who you want as your vendors and your suppliers, look at family businesses for a myriad of reasons. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. Briefly, my background is I'm a lawyer by training, and I was in government for many years. I was a state representative. I was in elected office. I was also a trial attorney. I was a litigator, and I practiced environmental law. And most of my life has been dedicated to working on behalf of environmental organizations. I represented river keepers. I worked with the Sierra Club. I've been on the national board of the Sierra Club. I was head of sustainability for City of Atlanta. I started the city's solar program, electric vehicle program. So anyone interested in sustainability initiatives, that was my career. Stuckey's was founded by my grandfather in 1937 as a roadside stand selling pecans. And that still to this day is the core of our business. My grandfather expanded from that modest stand, and he came from nothing. And he expanded from that to making candy products. And that's when the business really took off. So we're really not a restaurant. We've always been a roadside retail is sort of our niche. My grandfather grew from that to, this is what we're best known for, the pecan log roll. That's my grandmother's recipe. We are the original pecan log roll. No one else dates back to 1937. I'm a little proud of that. So my grandmother did not even know how to make candy when my grandfather came to her and said, we got to figure this out because I think we can really generate sales. And he did, and he grew from that modest roadside stand to, at our peak, we were 368 stores in 40 states across the US, everywhere but really the Pacific Northwest. And we had thousands of billboards. We owned our own candy plant, and we had a trucking company that would distribute our product. So we had our unique core products that we made ourselves. Our stores sold gas, we sold kitschy souvenirs, Like, I've got some of them with me because I'm working on our holiday boxes. I think we've sold more rubber alligators than anyone in America, and a lot of coonskin caps. So that's sort of what we're known for in our candy products. And we were a clean restroom, we were a safe stop, we were a welcoming stop, and that's what we were known for. My grandfather was not able to maintain the level of growth on his own, so he sold the company in 1964, a year before I was born. And he sold everything: the candy plant, the trucking company, the billboards, everything was sold. And then that company got bought out in a hostile takeover by Chicago Railroad conglomerate. And so we were out of family hands for decades, and the brand suffered. My father, fast forward 1985, my father had his own career. My father was in Congress, he was in politics, and he also had several companies he was running when he got out of politics. He got Stuckey's back because Stuckey's was losing so much money. The company that acquired the company that got it didn't even want it. And my father took it on, kept the company going, kept Stuckey's going, but it was really a bit of a side hustle for him. And he'll say that too, because he had a lot of other companies he was running. My father sold one of his companies to Warren Buffett 10 years ago. He and his partners made a killing, and they all retired. They left a skeleton crew running Stuckey's. And fast forward to a year ago, it was a year ago this week, that my dad's former business partners came to me and they said, I too invested in the company and bought out Stuckey. So my dad's former business partner said, do you want to buy Stuckey's? And I was head of sustainability. I had my own career, so it really was this decision, like, do I want to do this? And I loved my grandfather. I knew him. I knew the stores in our peak. I knew what we were capable of. And even though the company was sold before I was born, our peak was really in the mid 70s. So the first decade after it was sold, my grandfather remained involved in the company, and then he died. And that's really when it started to plummet. So I knew what Stuckey's was capable of. I knew the brand, and I just did not want to regret not doing this. The last thing I'll say about changing careers later in life, if any of you are thinking about that, message me on LinkedIn. We can talk about it. I'm 54. I was 53 when I took over Stuckey's, and that's the same age Ray Kroc was when he took over McDonald's, and he was a milkshake equipment salesman and had never franchised before in his life. So I think I'm testament that you can have transferable skills throughout your career trajectory that help you take on a family business, even if that was not your background necessarily. So with that, I'll run through the slides. I'm not going to read the slide, but I will say family businesses are really the backbone of our economy, 57% of the GDP. They support a wide range of sectors. And I love that bottom graph, 20% almost of businesses in the US are family owned. So next slide, I think this one's really relevant to all of us, is that only 30% of family businesses survive that transition to the second generation, and even less make it to the third generation. So I'm in that 12%. And honestly, I never thought we would keep going. And we're already working on the fourth generation. I have a nephew who owns and manages 2 of our Stuckey's locations. And so we're working on the fourth generation already. Next slide. So family businesses are resilient. That is my grandfather. And I think in uncertain, changing times, we are uniquely positioned to thrive by our very existence. We have demonstrated the ability to evolve and meet changing demands while still honoring what is our family legacy and being true to family values. I love the proof of the pudding presentation that showed values, because I think that's really at the core of what family businesses do. I mean, we share a lot more than a bloodline. We share a commitment to strong core values that we were raised on. With resilience, if you go to the next slide, I hope I remember what I had next. I want to talk a little bit about resilience. And so my background as Chief Resilience Officer for the city of Atlanta actually helped me out with this pandemic. The ability to adapt and change despite really challenging times, often economic hard times. I think that's critical, and family businesses have shown that. I wanted to show the slide with the World War II soldiers, especially because that's a great example. My grandfather had just started Stuckey's when the war hit. He'd been around for about a decade and was just starting to get the company off with 3 stores, and sugar was rationed. He couldn't get the essential ingredient for his product, and it looked like Stuckey's was going to shut down. And instead, he figured out a way to make it work, and he sold candy to the troops. So Stuckey's candy was in the ration kits during World War II, along with Hershey's and Charms and Dentyne and Wrigley's gum. So a lot of these classic brands kind of pivoted during the war. And it turned out not only to be an adaptation in tough times, but we grew as a result of it and actually became stronger. And that's a very definition of resilience. It's not just being able to deal with challenging times and kind of get back to the way you were before, but it's to be stronger as a result of tough times. And that's what we showed. My grandfather started boxing his candy. He'd never done that before. He just made candy fresh at the stores and served it fresh. He didn't box. So for the war, he had to package his candy. And that led to, after the war, he kept that packaging. He had to buy, he had to create he started his candy plant during the war so he could manufacture for the war. So he had a candy plant as a result of that. He had a boxing facility as a result. And when the war ended, he started making attractive candy boxes, which was a huge avenue of growth and sales for him. So he became stronger. The other example of resilience with Stuckey's is we were on the roads before the interstate highway system. And when President Eisenhower passed the Interstate Highway Act, I believe it was 1952, but it was in the early 50s, we had to face either going under or changing. And my grandfather, unlike a lot of businesses that failed when the interstate was built, he shut down all of his stores and he built new ones. And before, his stores were he just built them. There was no consistency. But when he had the opportunity to build new stores, he came up with branding and marketing and a consistent design. And those are the stores that people of a certain age will remember. That's what Stuckey's was known for. We had a sloped teal roof. We had that zigzag gas canopy. And he used that adversity as an opportunity to really build and grow. And family businesses, because we've been able to survive, every one of us has examples where we've had to adapt in order to be strong. Next slide. I think another important thing, and you've seen in the other presentations, there's some themes throughout, is that we tend to have strong employee retention and loyalty and a sense of goodwill that's been built up over time because we value relationships. We have to value relationships or we wouldn't have survived as a family. And that sense of connectivity extends to our employee base. I bet every one of the panelists have employees that have been with them for decades, and Stuckey's is no exception. We are small, we're a little scrappy now because we were out of family hands for so long. And my father largely downsized when he retired, but the employees we have been with us, every single one of them, 20 plus years. It's amazing. And that's my dad and my mom on the left. Next. While we're turning the slides, I'll say the other thing is we're not, so I want to talk a little bit about values and then we can go on from there. I think it's really important to talk about values, and you see that with family businesses. My grandfather had a saying that every traveler is a friend, and that was really at the core of what we did. Every customer was valued, and he was well ahead of his time in how he treated women. So next slide. My grandmother was actually his partner throughout. She was vice president. She was at his side throughout the business. So she didn't just come up with the recipe in the kitchen for the pecan log roll. She was his biggest champion. My grandfather during World War II, as you know, many women had to to seek employment to make it work. And so he employed a lot of women in his candy plant, and throughout his career, we elevated women. So there's some of the women that worked for him. Most of them were on the assembly line, but there were also, he had women who worked in the office as well. So next slide. I've got a slide of I've got a picture of my grandmother. Yeah, in this next slide, which I love. So my grandmother's the one in the suit. She's not Miss Georgia. And I like that Coke is in here. Coke is one of the sponsors. And by the way, Stuckey's has always partnered with Coke. So shout out to a fellow Georgia brand. Next slide. The other thing I'll say about values, and I'm nearing the end because I know our time's almost up. Very proud of this, that Stuckey's was always a welcoming stop, even during the height of segregation, when most roadside establishments were whites only. And Stuckey's, really our stronghold is Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of the states that were highly segregated. We were never segregated. We were always open and welcoming. We even had a few stores that were actually owned and operated by African Americans. And for that reason, we were in the Green Book, which was the guidebook that was used by African Americans during that era to know where they could safely stop. And because of that, we were in the movie, The Green Book. So if you haven't seen The Green Book, see The Green Book. I say that story just to say, now more than ever, I think we need to make sure that we are adhering to values that are really welcoming and diverse. And that's something that many third generation members of family businesses and fourth generation, like, we want to be respectful of the past, but we also want to embrace innovation and core values and have a social consciousness. And I think that's more and more what customers expect out of us as well. Next slide. Oh, so I just like this because not only are we a family business, we cater to families. We really care about families. And one of the kids in that photo with the diaper changing sent me that picture, and I just love that. So yeah, we were there before the diaper changing stations were a thing. That's how old Stuckey's is. But most people associate us with the road trip and family road trips. And so we were not just customers that were families, we had employees that were families. Every single one of our stores were owned and operated by a husband and wife team. So in the lower right-hand corner, that's one of the store owners and managers. It was owned and operated. Doreen, we've dealt with some of the same issues where we don't own our locations. We don't have corporate-owned stores. It's a challenge that I face today with consistency and making sure the brand's being upheld. Next slide. I think this is more like in nostalgia, I think that's definitely a calling card for many of us that have historic and legacy brands, that there's a connection with warmth and comfort. And that is where you can turn adversity into an advantage. With the pandemic, people are really seeking out a comfort and a connection with people because we feel isolated. And so the nostalgic component of Stuckey's, I've been amazed. We've actually done very well with our sales online, especially because people are reaching out and want that connection. Next. Oh, this is just more the road trip. I love these old pictures, so you'll have to forgive me, but I had so much fun when I took on the business. I spent my first 3 months just reading through all of my grandfather's archival files and finding these old photos that nobody had even opened those boxes since the 1977 when he died. So I'm now the keeper of the legacy. I consider myself not only the chief executive officer, but the chief brand officer and maybe the chief candy officer, a little bit of everything. That's the other thing with family businesses. You probably tend to do everything. Next slide. I'm gonna wrap up. Oh, those are just more pictures. These are, family businesses tend to have a very loyal customer base as well. And Stuckey's is no exception. These are pictures that people send us every day. We get pictures sent to us, and people share stories. And it's not just I liked stopping at your stores as a kid. It's my grandpa, Pop loved Stuckey's, and we would go fishing and we'd stop at Stuckey's afterwards as a treat. You know, it's that kind of connection that you can get. Next. I think this last slide. Yeah, and these are some of our employees that have been with us forever. The photo in the middle are two of our franchisees. It's the Whiteside family and Candy Whiteside in the center, who's married to Russ Whiteside on the far left. They've been franchisees for 30 years, and that's actually one of our best stores. It's in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And so if you can just skip on. So I'll just, I will, in the interest of time, if you could just skip to the last slide. I will say what we're working on now is expanding. The way we are surviving is we are doing a lot more business-to-business sales. So you'll find us in retail outlets. That's my son, so 4th generation. He's at Auburn eating Proof of the Pudding catering at his meal hall or part of his meal plan. We recently merged, and I went from owning 100% of the company to having a business partner. We jointly own the company. That's him right there, RG Lamar. He has a pecan company, and we.
Stephanie?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Hello? Hello? Is that it? Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you, Stephanie.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody was, well, that's pretty much it. I'll end there. That's my business partner. We are about to buy a candy plant. We should close in 2 weeks. And so we're about to rapidly scale what products we can offer. And we are definitely getting in the concession business. We have a full line of popcorn. Yeah, so I just close with have fun and got my coonskin cap on.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Our last speaker is Tony Liberto. He is the owner of and president of a multi-generational company, Ricos Cheese. He's been president since 2006. They are the manufacturer of cheese sauce, chips, ready-to-eat popcorn, and more. Tony's father, Frank, pioneered concession nachos in 1976. Tony?
Thank you very much, Denise. Good morning, everybody, and happy Veterans Day as well to all our veterans. Yeah, as Denise said, we are a multi-generation company. We're actually a 5-generation company. I represent the 4th generation. I do have my niece here, Megan, who works for us in our marketing department, that represents the 5th generation. So, yeah, as Stephanie said, it's not very easy to get to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th generation, but we've actually attained the 5th generation, and we are stronger than we've ever been, and we're moving in the right direction. My great-grandfather came over from Italy in 1909 and started a family business in Shreveport, Louisiana. Then he moved over to Beaumont, Texas, because malaria broke out in Louisiana, and he established our business over in Beaumont. Ran a family grocery store there for many years. Moved to San Antonio in the early 20s and started business here in San Antonio. He had 7 sons. My grandfather, Enrico, was one of the 7. He was the 3rd oldest. So you can imagine what my great-grandfather's succession plan concerns may have been. Having 7 sons, it's not easy who you're going to think about, handing the business over to. The oldest opened up started the first radio station in San Antonio, the first Spanish-speaking radio station in San Antonio. Italian and Spanish are very similar languages. The 2nd oldest became a priest. So my grandfather was the 3rd in line, and my great-grandfather gave the business to him to run. And in doing so, my grandfather still employed his other brothers in the business for quite some time. So it was a pretty good succession plan. There was no issues regarding who should get the business, really, and it went rather smoothly. My grandfather ran the business very well here in San Antonio until the early 50s. And then he ended up getting glaucoma, and he couldn't see very well. And so my dad had to take over the business early in his career. And he kept it here as a San Antonio run business for many years. He had an opportunity to expand it into Dallas and Houston, which he did in the theater distribution business. That was where we really had a strong focus early on. After we got out of the family grocery business, was theater distribution. He was distributing all kinds of products to the movie theaters, everything behind the concession stands, the candies, the Cokes, the janitorials, everything. I had an opportunity to expand over to the East Coast in Florida and the Carolinas. So we were primarily a theater distribution company for many, many years. And then Dad came up with this idea of nachos. We had a restaurant here in San Antonio that started serving the restaurant style nachos. And Dad said, that sounds delicious. How can I get this in concessions? And he came up with the concession version of the nachos. And he started selling it to Arlington Stadium where the Rangers play. And long story short, it worked great at the stadium business. The movie theater at the time, which was United Artists, which some of you may have recall the name of that theater chain. They asked him to put it in theaters, and Dad said, no, you have velvet seating and carpeting. And he goes, I don't want to have you call me next week and have me tell me how much I owe you for your cleaning bill. So they did a 3 or 4 theater test in Dallas. And the gentleman's name was John Treadwell. He called my dad back after 30 days and he said, Frank, you owe me a lot of money. And Dad said, see, I told you. He goes, what's the cleaning bill? He goes, no, Frank, I wanted to launch this throughout my circuit, and you only gave me a 5 theater test here in Dallas. I would have had this much more money if you would have given me all the circuits. So Dad's like, okay. So we ended up rolling it out with UA, and the rest is history. We've got nacho business and most of the major change, a lot of major change, I should say, in the U.S. and we also have it in stadiums and arenas and ballparks. And then we also got an international business as the movie theaters expanded internationally. We ended up expanding with them. So we are currently in 57 different countries right now, selling our products to a lot of venues that are theaters and stadiums, and some retail business as well. So that's where we kind of got to the point of where we're going to take to the next generation. I get an opportunity to move through. I graduated from college. I'm one of 3. I have an older sister and an older brother, and neither that work for the company, but they are on the board. And so when I got out of college, Dad said, hey, it's time to go to work. Let's go to work. So I worked for distribution places for, I guess worked in Dallas for about 2 or 3 years, moved to home office and started working here in San Antonio. We started getting into the retail business by accident. And we had all of our horses, I should say, all of our executives focused on our movie theater distribution business and our Ricos business with the movie theaters. And all of a sudden, a club store called Sam's called us and said, we'd like your product in our stores. And we said, who's Sam's Club? We didn't even know who they were. And so we started selling to them. And then another local regional retail grocery store called us. And it's very interesting to note that the gentleman that called us was a gentleman by the name of Charlie Gomez Sr. And some of you guys may recognize the name of Charlie Gomez in the NAC arena. Charlie Gomez Sr. was our first retail grocery broker for my dad. And that's how we got introduced to the Gomez family. And so he got us into HEB. So we started selling to these retail outlets, not really even trying to build that business. And so we started growing that business as well. Fast forward to today, we've got about 1/3 of our business in retail and 1/3 in international and 1/3 in concession and specialty markets. When you start talking about the effects of how COVID affected our family business, we saw an immediate, drop in movie theaters, and a lot of that also affected the international business because we have a lot of international business in the theater market. And it was a panic attack. It really was. I sit there and saw the Salt Lake City, the Utah Jazz basketball game, and the arena was empty before the game. And I was watching it live and I said, what is happening? This is our business. I immediately thought about movie theaters. I immediately thought about stadiums, arenas. I'm like, what's going to happen here? So we got into a very quick mode of, recovery mode, I should say. And we started talking about our other channels. Of course, we saw theaters close. We saw our international business start declining. But surprisingly enough, our retail business started increasing. A lot of people were having to stay at home. Stay-at-home snacking. I think a lot of people feel like the movie nacho is a great snack that they love to enjoy. They couldn't go get it at the movie theaters. So we have retail outlets, like I said, in all 50 states. And they started finding our product on the retail shelves. And so our retail business increased almost 44% early into the COVID era, which was something we didn't expect, but obviously something that we welcomed very much because it really helped stabilize the other two markets' deficits. So that was, I guess, something from a family business standpoint, the diversification of our industries that kind of evolved over years has really helped us through a pandemic that none of us expected. Obviously, we're all hoping for the movie theater business to come back and thrive bigger and better than it's ever done. Hopefully once they get a vaccine out there, people are gonna get more comfortable getting out and enjoying themselves in the movie theater experience like they used to. We'll see those markets hopefully come back as well. And everything will hopefully get back to normal soon. So that's a little bit where we are today. If you want to talk about the burdens and the blessings of the family business, yeah, we're very blessed. You can't say enough about having a fifth generation company in place that I'm very proud to be leading, but I can't say that it's all because of me. It is because of the extremely great executive staff that I have working for me. I really do feel like they help calm my nerves, I should say, because I do feel like most of the guys, all the guys that are working for me and women are doing a phenomenal job and really helping us navigate through this process. But there are challenges. Family business does have challenges. I mean, you're talking about some 3 and 4 generation businesses here. Yeah, when you get to the point of succession is where I see you seeing the biggest challenge. Who's going to take over? Who's going to be in the family business? Who's not going to be in the family business? How do we treat the ones that are going to be in the family business versus the ones that aren't going to be in the family business? And my dad hired a family business succession company, I guess in the early 90s. He saw the fact that, and I forgot to mention, when my grandfather handed the business to my dad, my grandfather and grandmother were fortunate enough to have a son as a first child. And my grandfather said, "No more children. I got my successor." So he had one son and they didn't have any more kids. And another funny story is I remember going over there as a child and visit my grandparents, and I walked into their bedroom and I didn't know this was normal or not normal, but they had 2 twin beds in the bedroom. He made sure my dad was going to be the only child. So it seems a little out of the norm, but so yeah, the succession planning is very, very important. My recommendation is to find a very good succession planning family business succession family firm, and it doesn't have to be local. Ours was out of Florida, and we're a Texas-based company. These guys are experts and really helping you navigate through the family issues that 100% of family businesses will actually have to address at some point or another. I'm at the 5th generation now. My niece is working for me. I've got 2 kids. My sister has 2 other kids. And the planning for that level of the generations, the cousins, how is that going to pan out? Some of them are already working in other professions right now. Are some of them going to want to come back in, or are they not? I don't know. But if you have a very, very good structured family business succession plan, that will help you succeed in moving from one generation to the next. And in closing, I'll just say that, being a family business, my dad has instilled in me, to have obviously the integrity and honesty and all those good things. But he always had one business motto, and he never claimed to write it himself, but it is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I use that as our business motto, and it's worked in every phase of our business. And so hopefully we'll all get back to normal soon. I wish all you guys the best. And Denise, I'm done now. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Tony, very much. So we are at time. I think we have a question about succession planning. I think Tony talked a lot about that too. I know Stephanie talked slightly about that. Is there anybody else who would like to add their thoughts on succession planning. All good? I don't see, Dan, any other questions in the
I would just
Q&A.
add, I agree that having an outsider is really important because you have to keep the politics out of it. We did that. We also have a small timber company, and we did succession planning with the timber company. But when I need to start thoughtfully looking at succession planning for Stuckeys, I might need a reference, Tony. So I'll message you.
Denise, the only other question I see is about community support. And I think
Right.
Doreen
Doreen spoke very much about community support. So I think, we talk family businesses. They're a significant portion of our economy. They're an important part of our history. And want to thank each of our panelists for participating today. And we will give it back to Chris. Chris.
It's all yours, Chris.
Okay. All right. Well, fabulous discussion here today. Thanks again to the panelists. Really was a fun discussion to listen to, and love all the enthusiasm too. I think that's very important in these times. Just want to remind all of our attendees, your one link gets you into all of the NAC education sessions planned for this week, except for the one this afternoon. The Copper Cane wine tasting is a separate link. Go to the retreat page on naconline.org to pick up that link. Also wanted to remind you that actually this morning was the planned time for the virtual fun run. Nothing much to do there other than go out and run, take a selfie, and send us a picture. When you do that, we'll send you the first 30 will get a beach towel courtesy of Promotion in Motion. I know I took a selfie of myself this morning shoveling snow. I figured that counts. So make sure you get out and get some exercise this week. Also wanted to remind you on the retreat page on naconline.org, we've got terrific venue tours. We've got the Lacrosse Center in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We've got Legends at AT&T Stadium in Dallas-Fort Worth. We got the Tivoli Theater in the Chicagoland area, and then the Amway Center in Orlando, a nice sizzle reel from the Amway Center. We also have bonus features on that retreat page. Episode 3 of Laboring in a Multi-Generational Workforce, our podcast, episode 3 is out. The first 2 have been, they're also there, and they've been tremendously popular. So you're going to want to make sure you check that out. And then earlier in the year, Dan did a resume session that's for, unfortunately, we've had some people displaced, and that's a webinar recording of that session. And I do encourage you to check that out. Okay, now we're going to do today's door prizes. And the very first one is a case of those pecan rolls that Stephanie spoke so highly about. And Stephanie, I've never had those either, so I really need to have one of those. But our first winner of the pecan rolls is Kevin Casey of Tri-Stone Cinema Group. Next, we're giving away a 5-pound Hershey bar, courtesy of the Hershey Company. And that winner is Stephen Liu of Sodexo. Next, we've got a case of 200 masks, courtesy of Golden Link. And the winner there is Tony Tillmans of Cinema Entertainment Corp, CEC. Then we have 2 stay-at-home pretzel kits, courtesy of Ben Soft Pretzels. The winner there is AJ Taylor of Galaxy Theaters. Our next prize is a forehead thermometer and 3 boxes of face masks from our friends at Digital Light Force. And the winner there is Kathy Gilman of Synergy Entertainment Group. And then finally, we've got a cheese dispenser and 1 case of cheese courtesy of Ricos. We appreciate that. And the winner there is Michael Huggins of Melco Theaters. A quick reminder this afternoon that virtual wine tasting, that is a separate link. So go to naconline.org to check that out. I've heard very great things about Joseph Wagner as a presenter, and you're going to want to take advantage of that session. Also, we want to preview Thursday at noon. We've got Concessions in a Post-Pandemic World, a discussion with Luis Rivera, First Star Solutions, and some venue experts. And then later on in the day, what the election results mean for the concession industry. And Don Lear and several members of government relations will have a great discussion on the election that was. With that being said, Dan, if you have no other comments.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You've been watching Retreat Week, brought to you by NAC, where food meets fun. Thanks, everyone.